The ocean is vast, silent, and deceptive. It holds no memory of what passes through it. Thousands of miles from the nearest shore, the water is a flat black mirror, freezing to the touch. A massive cruise ship cuts through this emptiness, its bow carving a white scar into the dark surface. Inside the hull, the world is a controlled environment of warmth and light, shielded by layers of reinforced steel. To the passengers, the ship is an island, a fortress that defies the elements. They walk the decks, oblivious to the forces pressing against the outer plating. The engines pulse with a steady rhythmic thrum, vibrating through the floors and walls, a mechanical heartbeat of safety. The ship moves with absolute confidence, its mass pushing aside the frigid currents. It is a gianting of human engineering. But the ocean does not care for engineering. The distance between safety and catastrophe is closing with every rotation. The change begins not with a crash, but with a sound that defies description. It is a low-frequency groan, a deep, guttural vibration that travels through the entire steel frame of the ship. It starts in the soles of the feet, a tremor that shakes the very foundation of the decks. Then comes the scrape. It is the sound of thousands of tons of ice grinding against the outer plating. The ship shudders. The vibration turns into a violent metallic shriek as the iceberg forces its way along the side of the vessel. Inside the lower decks, the steel walls shudder under the immense pressure. Rivets pop like rapid-fire gunfire, pinging off the bulkheads and ricocheting through the corridors. The outer plating, though thick and reinforced, is pushed inward, buckling under the weight of the ice. Seams split open, the metal tearing with a jagged, screeching protest. The ship lifts slightly, a sudden, unnatural tilt that sends loose equipment sliding across the floor. The steady hum of the engine room is interrupted by the sound of twisting steel. The air in the corridors grows heavy with the smell of ozone and cold, damp salt. The shield has been breached, and the ocean begins its slow, relentless entry into the heart of the giant. Sensors deep within the bowels of the ship scream in unison. Moisture has bypassed the first line of defense. Throughout the lower decks, heavy steel doors slam shut with a thunderous, mechanical finality. These magnetic locks are designed to isolate damage, to turn the ship into a series of independent, buoyant cells. For a few seconds, the sound of rushing water is muffled, contained behind the thick steel barriers. The crew on the bridge watches the status monitors, waiting for the indicators to stabilize. But the lights on the display do not stop blinking. One compartment turns red, then another, then a third. The breach is not a clean puncture, it is a long, jagged tear. The math shifts in an instant. The volume of incoming water is no longer a localized problem, it is a structural catastrophe. The compartments are filling, and the buoyancy that kept the giant afloat is being replaced by the crushing weight of the sea. The water does not merely leak, it surges. It pours through the jagged tears in the hull with the force of a river, drowning the lower decks in seconds. The sheer volume of the ocean, thousands of tons of freezing brine, floods the breached compartments, turning the vessel into a sinking weight. The bow begins to dip, dragging the forward section of the ship down toward the abyss. As the nose of the ship sinks, the center of gravity shifts violently toward the breach. The entire steel frame screams under the sudden, uneven distribution of mass. Structural supports, designed for the buoyancy of the open sea, now groan as they bear the weight of the incoming tide. The deck plates buckle, and the internal bulkheads warp, unable to withstand the pressure of the water pressing against them from within. Every inch the bow drops, the tilt increases, forcing the ship to fight against its own geometry. The structural integrity of the midsection is pushed to the breaking point. Metal beams twist and snap, their cries echoing through the corridors like the sound of a dying animal. The deck is no longer a level surface, but a steep, treacherous slope. Deep in the engine rooms, the roar of the generators is deafening. Water cascades over the floor plates, rising toward the intake valves. Automated pumps scream as they fight the deluge, their pistons thrashing in a desperate rhythm. Then, the sound changes. A high-pitched whine cuts through the mechanical thrum as the first turbine shorts out. The pumps seize, choked by the freezing surge. In the engine control room, the technicians scramble to reach the manual overrides, but the water is already at their knees, pulling them off balance. A massive spark erupts from the main distribution panel, showering the room in white-hot light. Then, the darkness hits. It is absolute. Every light on the ship dies in a single, synchronized instant. The hum of the ventilation, the vibration of the floor, all of it vanishes. Silence takes hold. On the bridge, the primary navigation screens go black, leaving the room in shadows. A second later, the emergency power kicks in, but it is weak. The screens are no longer showing charts. They are saturated with red, flashing warnings. The ship is blind, powerless, and drifting into the final descent. The deck begins to tilt, moving past the point of stability. It starts as a subtle lean, then accelerates into a steep, impossible incline. Gravity claims everything not bolted to the steel. Heavy mahogany tables and service carts break their moorings, sliding across the polished floors with a thunderous roar. They slam into the bulkheads, shattering upon impact and sending splintered debris across the tilting corridors. The crew fights to maintain their footing, hands clawing at handrails and door frames to keep from sliding toward the lower side. Every step is a battle against the floor itself. In the hallways, the emergency alarm blares, a rhythmic, jarring pulse that cuts through the chaos. The crew moves with desperate, calculated speed, abandoning the lower levels to reach the boat deck. They pull the release levers for the lifeboats, but the davits groan under the uneven strain of the ship's list. The machinery is designed for a level vessel, and now it fights against the angle. Metal grinds against metal as the boats swing wildly, threatening to collide with the hull. The air is thick with the smell of ozone and the sound of crashing equipment. There is no time for hesitation. Every second, the deck angle sharpens, turning the ship into a trap. They work in a frantic race, fighting the rising tide and the shifting weight of the vessel. The ship settles into its final precarious position. The angle of the deck is now so extreme that movement is impossible. For a few long suspended seconds, the vessel stops its downward plunge. It hangs on the surface, caught in a strange temporary equilibrium. Deep within the upper decks, massive pockets of trapped air act as a buoyant lung, fighting against the weight of the encroaching ocean. The silence returns, broken only by the groaning of stressed steel as the hull begins to buckle under the immense pressure. Then, the air starts to escape. It forces its way out through vents and shattered portholes, bubbling up to the surface in violent, churning geysers. The buoyancy vanishes. The ship begins to slide, not with a sudden drop, but with a slow, agonizing descent. The bow dips lower, dragging the rest of the structure down into the dark water. Every joint in the ship screams as the pressure intensifies. The deck disappears beneath the foam, and the ship begins its long terminal journey into the abyss. There is no resistance left. The last of the steel stern slips beneath the freezing surface, creating a final, violent swirl of white foam. Then, the turbulence dies. The ocean surface smooths over, erasing the path of the giant. A field of scattered debris rises to bob in the frigid water, splintered wood, buoyant crates, and remnants of the interior. They drift aimlessly in the dark, icy expanse. Nearby, the iceberg continues its slow, steady journey through the night. It remains unchanged, a massive, jagged monument of ice. The wind picks up, pushing the debris further apart. Silence reclaims the horizon. The ocean is vast, cold, and entirely indifferent. The water is empty once more.